Introduction of guests, who's all new here?
I will introduce Emily Peabody. She is our new environmental manager 14 for the non-community water supply program. Many of you know Dan Detweiler, who supervises that unit. What we've done is, because of growth, through the years, we've split that unit into two. So Emily is, the supervisor for the folks that work directly with local health departments, the non-community program. And Dan is gonna be managing the more of the data side, our federal databases with EPA to transmit the, the compliance information under the Safe Drinking Water Act. So he's more on the data side. It's actually called the Non-Community Technical Support Unit. And we're happy to have Emily on board for the managing the core non-community program.
So you're the one we do with.
Yes, I get to do the
Say
coffee.
congratulations.
Bring snacks. Yes.
Oh, you didn't get the memo?
I didn't, no.
No, that's what we're-
Our other guest is Julia. She works for DHHS, but is going to work for us a couple days a week, doing some well logic stuff. Or hopefully we'll find something better for you to do.
That can be madness.
Yeah,
That's when guys call, hey, change your address. Hey, you do this.
oh, yeah, yeah,
Well, those are good calls to have though, to make our data better.
Well, right.
yeah, yeah.
Right, good, good. Well, welcome, everybody. Anybody have any additions or omissions online? Anything extra they want on the agenda? Yes, sir.
Just the one item I added via email, as well as the online to everybody. I put a link in for this swag patch.
Yeah, the switch.
So if we can address that under new business at the end there,
Okay.
that would be good.
Buddy, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can we just have just a mention on the MGWA program in February? Okay,
We can do that under new business. I'll let you do that, Dan.
okay, thank you.
Did you get the email from Greg McCarty?
Yes, or today, I think it was
Yeah.
today. You know, that link that he had was like, it was identifying it as like malicious, so I'm not sure if there's a website that you did look at it.
Yeah, well, it takes you to like almost like a Yelp,
Okay,
and then the website for the company. You have to get it, and it takes, or Google.
okay, I'll look at it then, cause
Yeah.
like I said, it came in, I think, this morning and,
As long as your computer still works.
right, it was,
Well, especially if that's government computer. I get it. My wife has the same thing. She works for federal.
Yeah.
Anything like that, just.
yeah, if you verified it, I'll click on it, but I
Yeah.
just didn't wanna click on
I clicked
something.
on it, it was good. It goes to
Okay.
their, go on their site, and then it's we can talk about that at the next meeting if you want.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what it looks like yet. Hopefully, if it's something that we
It's
can address.
basically- I mean, we could talk about it. I'll talk about it in your business.
Sure. What was that called again? Remember?
Called,
Something about low
Sorry.
volume or something, right?
huh?
Low volume or something?
So, yeah, basically what it is, it's when you they have a system from, and we'll talk about it, half a gallon a minute or to 1, or 1 gallon a minute to 2. It's basically a system that you put in your home that will not allow it's a tank system, won't allow the well to overpump, won't allow, and it looked like everything owner wise was NSF stuff. But he didn't want to have trouble. He's done it on retrofits, but he's got a couple that are in a well first area where he's at, and the house is already going up, and it's like, he knows it's gonna be a gallon of water less.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, sounds good.
okay, all right, approval of minutes from the previous meeting. Anybody see anything in the minutes that they had problem with? I didn't. It's just real good, actually. Okay. EGLE update, Brandon.
All right, thank you, sir. So while construction team is finish up their local health department assessments, so we'll continue to review The ones this month that had not met said we kind of finalize a common trends report. Hopefully to share that at a later date. The entire team was able to attend a training and tour with the Michigan Geological Survey. So Sarah Pearson down at her home shop in Kalamazoo. So it was interesting to look at all the core samples and get a kind of update on their mapping project. And then last, we have finished up interviews for Montana's backfill contamination investigation EQA positions. We had seven candidates this week, so we should hopefully be picking someone here shortly and have that person up and running here in the next month or two.
So
Oh, you can ask them a question or follow up.
I have a question. And we're seeing this in the field and it's a reason for bringing it up. Code versus MPRs. And I know it's always, I can't think of an instance right now where a sanitarian is either requesting, asking, enforcing, I'm not sure how to put it, something that's an MPR, but really not a code. And maybe what I should do is go back and look at our emails and notes and get that to you.
Mhm.
Because it's not that I don't agree with it, but I think explaining to a sanitarian what can be enforceable by code and what's an MPR, there needs to be some definition there, especially when you guys go in and do assessments, I think is, and even if, I know we can't go along, but even like a setup here, but the welcoming community is seeing might help.
If you have specifics.
Yeah, we do, we have some emails.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that would be helpful.
And with, I'll be real honest with, you know, we'll talk politics real quick. With lame duck, Kim and I were nuts. It's crazy. So from our last meeting till now, this is kind of like a. Because. Yeah,
I was actually helping to take a nap this afternoon.
there was a possibility that you guys were gonna get inundated with calls from about 100 cities because they weren't gonna be able to use their water system. Yeah, there was gonna be a ban on anything over 2 million or 1 million gallons, 2 million gallons a day.
Oh, it's coming back. We had to work with it at the end of the month.
Yeah.
All water, large quantity of water has to come from a Great Lake or a water body tied superficially to a Great Lake. So for example, like if you were here in the city of Lansing, Dave, you must have been spending some time with me because you had that same shit grid.
Yeah,
I was talking to one of our other clients, who's used to be a water system operator, and I said, all right, if this was implemented, what would be the impact on like the Grand River, which is where it goes through the Lansing? And he goes, well, typically you figure about 9 million gallons of water per 100,000 population. And I said, okay, Lansing area is about 250 on a really good day. If you're bad at math, maybe closer to 300,000. So that's about 27 million gallons of water per day out of the Grand River. I said,
that's just
Well-
Lansing.
yes. And I said, what would that do to the river? He goes, well, you dry it up. And that's assuming that the water gets to you because Grand River goes down by Jackson, starts down by, I believe, Hillsdale or Adrian.
Starts down by Near Lake.
Okay.
Exactly where it starts, but here's the other side of the equation. I'll just, so there's a whole different division. The first contributor that contributes waste that has an EPA discharge permit to the Grand River is Jackson. It's Jackson, Eaton Rapids, Hull, Lansing, where their wastewater comes into. Each operator has a reduction. So it gets larger, the contaminant level gets larger as it gets towards Grand Haven. So we're gonna take our water supply out of the same water supply we're putting our waste supply in. That needs to be mentioned
Yeah.
at that work.
Well, and the other kicker for this wonderful legislation, well thought out, anyway, is if you have to change your infrastructure, you may not pass that cost along to your customers.
So is this related to then like that whole ARI or what was the
No,
reason
they
behind?
create a lot of ARIs,
What
just-
was the limit that they're
2 million gallons a day.
But like,
basically
what's
a
the, like,
Why would people go to a more vulnerable, why would we go to a more
Right.
vulnerable drinking water source when we have a good?
We're saving the earth.
We're gonna
Probably
save,
saving the earth, but we
intercept the
You know,
water going to the stream,
Well,
and we
it's
pull it out of the
elected.
stream after.
My constituents want me to save the earth. That's.
We don't want you to pump everything dry, because we're gonna protect the groundwater.
Right, you're thinking pragmatic. You're thinking like I think.
That's not allowed.
I mean, if I don't take it out of the water coming to the stream, then theoretically, maybe there is water in the stream, but it's much more polluted than the water
Yeah,
that I have, and
Yeah.
I don't want so I'm gonna to cause lots of problems to people who drink the water or having treatment
Right.
through the roof.
yeah. Well, and the other thing is, you're talking about an ARI, there's a statutory presumption in this that the surface water and the groundwater are tied together.
Right.
But
So-
our ARI and our models do that. Our ARI models looks at there is talking about what's ability to pull out of that. And
Without
not
having an
impact
ARI.
the change in the quality of the stream
Right.
of the body that's.
I have an extra, correct.
But definitely from the department standpoint, we don't want to use our internal rivers as drinking water.
I
source.
agree. Yeah,
So, but this was never, it never got introduced. You guys had been working.
I don't know, I did it.
Well, it was introduced, and then we're having a work group discussion at the end. It
What was the number? I wanna go back and take a look.
was 1180 or 1080? I think it was 1180. Hang on, I'll look it up and tell you.
Okay, we can move on while he's looking at that. Contract enforcement updates, Brad?
Sorry, Mayor.
I said I wasn't done with the Eagle.
John Schmidt's waiting to get in, if you have not let him in yet, sorry.
Do the Teams meeting?
Yes,
I do not have I mean, you see what's on the screen. I don't have an invitation for like to bring them in, so.
So you had,
Okay, just for an Eagle update, I just wanted to let everybody know, I know it's not well related, but this week Eagle took part in the annual on-site wastewater conference. It's held at the Kellogg Center. I know I saw Dan Mylan was there and I had the opportunity to catch up with him, which is great. Both Mylan and Valley Farms had booths in the exhibitor area, and I just want to give them a shout out. They're always so generous with their time and expertise and you know, supporting both industries and supporting the growth of, you know, professionals in the field. So yeah, just a shout out to them. I did talk quite a bit with Brad Kilm and over at Valley Supply. And again, just like always, they're open to open up their shop, taking people around and showing them the pieces and the parts, and definitely have a new group that I want to get over there and take advantage of that. So thanks again, Dan. And I think Glenn was on the call here. Thank you, Glenn, for supporting all of that. It's much appreciated.
sorry to interrupt you, Senate Bill 1181 is the bill number. That was from the last session.
Yep.
Okay.
And it will be reintroduced this year.
So
Thank you, Dana.
looking quickly at the minutes, did the Battle Creek, we had a well drilling demo down in Battle Creek. It's for Eagle and local health. Did that get discussed at the last meeting or did that happen? I think that happened.
That'll be under 6B. I've got pictures and everything I was gonna show.
Okay, I just wanted to, so.
Keep trying to get in.
And then the last item was that,
If you
Brad
see it,
Lasky is,
look at it.
has taken the job
Why don't you, what I don't have
DNR,
it.
and so he's, just to let you guys know, because he's kind of been doing a lot of stuff well with the rest of the team, but he is, he's taking that and next week, I think, he takes the job.
conservation officer.
Nope, not a conservation officer. He's with forestry, I think on, evaluating newbies and land purchasing. I'm not sure exactly what the department, rather than be DNR forestry.
And you guys allow this?
What do
You know, I even give a recommendation
Yeah.
against my.
You know,
will.
we didn't like put on,
I would've
we
tried to
really
say
don't
that.
have handcuffs to these jobs.
I like,
It's
he's
come
been
and go.
great.
He's been working on that as an area that he was more focusing within his master's program and stuff that has been going, and so that.
That's why I said conservation officer, because he had mentioned.
Yep.
I know, that's kind of his.
Yep. But not that, it's gonna be more of a, the job was into, not exactly where the abortions and purchasing or other things, but he's.
Gotcha.
No, congrats to him.
Congrats, Brad.
Sucks to be him.
All right, so that was,
Jowls and now.
yeah, there you go. I do want to say that I think Valley Mylan doing those things brings great value, because I think even as a young employee, looking at what somebody's talking about rather than hearing what somebody's talking about and then looking it up, a hands-on, hey, this is a Baker 12-inch billet adapter, or this is a Merrill billet adapter, or this is a submersible pump, and this is a 3. It's all that kind of different. Just physically seeing it gives better conjecture when they're out in the field. So, thanks, guys, really appreciate it. We are on to Michigan Railroad Association, local health departments, blah, 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 open to all, association meeting partners. We were invited, go ahead.
The contractor enforcement update by Brad. He
Oh,
said
yeah.
he's gonna be here in about 30 to 45 minutes. He's running a little bit late, so we'll cover that when he gets
Okay.
here. Unless somebody from that's on right now
Yeah.
from enforcement, like Matt or somebody wants to
Yep.
cover it.
Yeah, we can do a quick one here for it, and then he can, if he's got anything to add, he can. But we had, since last time we met, we had one informal conference with the driller, and we're putting together the documents and everything for that when those are being reviewed. We had one compliance agreement that had been sent out to a driller here recently that has not been signed and hasn't been returned yet, but they're still in the process of reviewing it. Brian touched on Brad leaving as the other bit of big news, and we do have one current signed compliance agreement with the driller that has some possible violations that we're in the process of reviewing with Brandon's team here in the next week or so, I think.
Wait a minute. Possible violation, but a signed compliance agreement.
Yes, yep. Yep.
So
So
we have
there's-
a consent agreement that's signed and he's potentially violating his consent agreement, which would mean revocation.
Yes.
Okay, now I understand. I'm going.
Yep.
As a possible violation, but he signed the consent agreement already?
Yeah, nope, yeah, he was in one for previous
Confirmed
violations.
violations on the front, or allege
Yep.
that we agreed to.
Just do the blank sign
maybe I'm
ahead of time. Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
That's not good.
No.
No,
No, that is not good. That is, for the better lack of words, when I counsel a driller, if you do have a consent agreement, don't screw up. That can't support you. I mean. Like watching a house go up in flames, that one.
If you're dumb, you suffer.
Pretty much, yeah. Okay, now we're on to B. I am sorry, Michigan groundwater, and then we'll ask Brad to maybe elaborate if he wants to when he gets in, if that's okay.
sure, yep, that's fine.
Michigan groundwater. Maliha, Department of Health, Human Services, EGLE training outreach open to all.
I have a quick one before you start, but I'm planning a training early spring. It will be for health department staff, probably mainly managers, kind of putting in the details now, but it will go over the fiscal year, this last fiscal year, for standard and self-evaluations, trends that we saw as staff when evaluating, items that we decided as a group that we will be focusing on this year when we're out for fiscal year 2025. So we'll be doing that online, or I'll be doing that online, and then staff will attend for questions. So it'll also be recorded.
Nice.
You'll get an invite here probably about a month.
Great.
Yeah, we had a training and outreach event for health departments and EGLE on November 20th. Peerless had been contracted by the city of Battle Creek to drill some wells. They had subcontracted to Dyer well drilling. We had originally planned to have do some mud rotary and setting casing kind of thing, trying to set it up in advance. And based on the date and what was going on, actually what it ended up turning into was basically air rotary instead. So they did their drilling, they set their casing, and then they were basically drilling below the casing into the rock. So a lot of people don't necessarily get to see a lot of their rotary. So I thought, instead of trying to reschedule and do some different things, that would be a good experience, for everybody to see. It was a pretty rainy day, but we ended up with, over 20 people from EGLE and, local health departments, our, over 20.
Wow.
It was pouring.
Yeah,
It was sideways and cold.
yeah,
In cold.
yeah.
Well, I have a solution to the mud rotary.
And the, wall construction staff or program staff were there, along with Bob Masters from Peerless. And we kind of served as essentially the narrators and answered some questions. I'm just gonna, people don't mind, I'll just kind of share some, pictures here. So, let's see, get rid of this. This is our two of our trainers here from the well construction group. So Kathy and Tweak was there as well as myself. Kind of first kind of introductory picture here, but this was kind of during the drilling process. Like I said, it was air and it's the city of Battle Creek, so they're making a lot of water. Obviously here, everybody's in their safety gear, but they were actually using a vac truck to vac up cuttings and water. And you'll see in a minute here, you can see the boards kind of protecting the borehole there, but the casing had been set already. It had been grouted and they were drilling out through the bottom of that, but they were making a lot of water here. So next picture, you can kind of see based on the flow, we were estimating, 1,000 gallons a minute.
Over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can kind of see it kind of coming out and the water starting to accumulate, even with the back truck working, trying to suck it all up. And you can kind of see how it kind of, as time went on and, the production went up, it continued to just make water like crazy. So, once that was done, some of the wells that had already been drilled, they were doing aquifer tests on. So, they were stressing basically the well, taking measurements inside the well as far as the pumping well and monitoring wells around it to see what kind of aquifer characteristics we get out of it. So Bob was there and he did a good job of describing the process that they were doing for that. Obviously, these wells produce like crazy, so they weren't necessarily getting very little drawdown in any of the monitoring wells, but here's the discharge away from the well. You can see it's just a ton of water. And just, kind of not the whole group, but most of the group kind of made it over. And we also went into the well house and, a lot of people hadn't seen a type 1 well and, sampling ports, the way it's vented, things like that. So they also got a good experience with, vertical turbine type. Okay. But I think that's really all the pictures I wanted to show here, so.
Well, thank you. Anybody have any questions online on that? We have a contracted 2 wells that one's in Hillsdale County. We have irrigation well, 10-inch steel casing. If you want to see mud rotary bone.
Yeah.
Other one is Eaton County Maplewood Golf Course. Will be a 10-inch PVC well, shallow casing. Probably 50, 60 foot maybe. So if you wanted to set, and we can set those up so that it's a golf course. They're not out there golfing, so we can
Sure.
set it up here probably in the next 3 or 4 weeks.
Okay. I'll get a hold of you.
Right.
We'll set something up for at least at one of them. I will say that, obviously I think the training was well received, but when I was talking to people out there, one thing that I continue to hear from sanitarians is that they'd really like to see, and even though it sounds really simple, to see a pitless on a well, and see a pump install and to see the service line go in. And we also had some requests for cable tool to see cable tool as well. So,
No problem. no problem on the cable or any of it for me.
Yeah, so, you know, these are items that whenever I talk to sanitarians and we get out in the field, these are things that are pretty consistent that they don't get to see and they'd like to. And most of them, like, you know, putting on a pitless or, you know, doing a pump install it isn't terribly complicated. It's just a matter of getting the site and
Right,
getting
would
it
it be
set up.
easier if we got a list of names? Because I can reach out to drillers and like if they're spread out, say, hey, contact a sanitary and redo an install. Have them watch the whole thing, because you can get the footless pump it in. and-
Well, the good thing is if I can get the driller to get a hold of me, like with this one, anybody within an hour to an hour and a half, health department wise or EGLE wise,
Right,
if I get, you know, 2, 3 weeks notice,
Right.
I will send the notice out to everyone in those areas and I can coordinate how many people, you know, can make it and who's gonna be there and coordinate with the driller as far as when things get done. So I can kind of coordinate the event so that the driller doesn't necessarily have to worry about who's coming
right.
and where they're coming from. So
So
I don't mind doing that at all, so.
Are you looking for a residential pitless or a commercial pitless, or what's your thinking?
Either.
We could easily, you know, I mean, throwing this in there, buddy, we have that 4-inch clear well that we drilled at our office years ago as a sample. We've never put a pitless on it. I don't need a pitless, but we could easily dig that up, you know, possibly at our open house and have your people in or do a completely separate day and put a pitless adapter on it and drop a pump in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Yeah, that sounds good. Set it up, Glenn. Thanks for volunteering.
Yep.
And I forgot out there, do you guys use a microphone or some kind of sound system so people can hear better?
We do. We actually bought a really good sound system now. So I think Dan did that for us. So I think we got a pretty good system now.
Excellent. Yeah, I think that was one of the downfalls of Battle Creek. It was really hard to hear, plus with the rain and everything, it was hard to hear.
I'll order good weather.
Thank you.
It poured rain when that well was installed too,
Yeah.
that he's talking about.
Mhm. Yeah,
It was a bad day. Yep.
Okay, any other thing on outreach? We were invited to, yeah. So we're actually gonna be speaking there. One of the two of us gonna decide which one we should have, but
Depends on brand rooms.
yeah,
What are you gonna talk about?
I don't know.
I'm gonna practice my juggling skills.
Well, that's yet to be determined. But probably, well, here's what we're seeing, what you know, I don't know. I'm still breathing from lame duck. You're up next, Anita.
I'm up next. All right. Well, logic update. We're busy. Things are going well. We've got our 2 analysts, Natalie and Isaac, and now we've got Julia a couple days a week. So, we put in about 11,000 paper records. Or no, sorry, 1,600 fixed, 11,000 well locations. So that keeps them really busy. I've noticed a couple trends in that some contractors are not entering their dry hole records correctly. So we've been going in and fixing those, and some well uses, weren't, that they didn't pick the correct one, so we're going back in and fixing those, that sort of thing. Just doing a lot of data fixes. What else do we have going on? Yeah, I've been contacting local health departments individually and doing, some one-on-one well record review training with them. Just kind of going through every field on the well record, explaining what it is, what they should or shouldn't see, depending on what type of drilling method, that sort of thing. So, so far I've done that at 15 local health departments and 119 staff. So, and I just got a request yesterday for Grand Traverse wants me to do it, and so does Oakland.
The EH director too, did they not?
Pardon?
Didn't Grand Traverse just lose their EH director?
Brent?
Yeah,
Brent Lee?
he went over to Benzie when I heard.
It's held officer in left northwest to go to. Benzie De Leon.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay, it was Grand Traverse, okay. And
Yeah.
Which was the former Grand Traverse.
They didn't have one. Benzie De Leon has always shared a health officer with Northwest Health Department.
So, one thing, and this kind of goes with law logic a little bit, and what I found in a larger company. Is that some of the health departments are using, I don't know what the name of the program is, but it's basically where they can Google, bring it up, put a dot where the well's gonna go, and this is where the septic in a circle.
Mhm.
All that. Well, that program, if not set up right, doesn't allow for the township or section to be on the permit. I'm getting permits without townships or sections. That has the county. And sometimes it has the property tax ID number depending on the county. But I work in maybe 13 counties. And I've had to call the counties and say, hey, look, my staff, I look over the well worksheet that you set up. I look over that and I give it to Michelle. She puts it in well logic, then she's coming back to, hey, there's no section. And I'm having to pull a plat book, show her how to use the plat book. And I think we need to make sure, and this is just me, and this is a well driller's opinion. If I'm required to have it on the well record, it should be required to be on the record. Township section. The property tax ID number isn't always required for well logic.
Right.
We can argue whether it should or shouldn't be. I kind of like it, but some counties would rather have the facility number than the permit number. So that's a per county thing, but what I'm noticing is I'm seeing more and more of that type of program. My concern, as we talk about that later, we're issuing a lot of permits from the desk.
Are you speaking of fetch, buddy? Because I
That's
see a
it.
lot of my health
Yeah.
departments are moving.
Yep,
fetch.
that's the one.
You can use, water well viewer, really easy and
Yeah.
really quick to zoom in, click, and it gives you county, township, townwide section.
And that's great.
Just, that's just another tool.
I agree with you.
Instead of using the-
When I'm at the office, sometimes that's what I'll do. I'll just pop it up, say what's in this section, but it's when I'm not there. Or, I'm just trying to eliminate issues in the future. I think it should be a requirement that the section number and the township on all permits.
It's almost like location information.
Yeah, just basic. If they can't issue every permit on an on-site or pre-site, I get that, because there's a lot of counties, especially the further north you go, that one sanitarian's doing everything. So, but they can get the permit, the address, the stuff that we have to have on well logic as far as county information put in there, so it's less. We know, hey, we're in this county, this township, in this section. And even with the GPS, you need it. So that's one thing I was noticing, and I've been seeing a little bit more.
The only other thing, I'm still going after those contractors, and still submitting records on paper. They need to get on board, and I'm hoping that, we can,
I did.
MGWA is gonna support it.
Well, we'll support it. My thing is I was gonna write it down. I was driving down the road or something on it here about. There's some new federal government money for broadband and internet and everything and then they mentioned there's so many hundred, some thousand people in the state still don't have access to internet.
That is not the case with these contractors, because I looked up where every one of their businesses in, they're in major cities. They're in major cities, so that whole, they don't have internet is,
They know this,
that
not this.
is not true.
That's probably.
They use well logic to search.
Right.
They just don't put their records in. I mean, some of them. So yeah, we gotta change that for sure. And once Well Logic gets rewritten, hopefully in the next year or two, we'll just require it. I mean, that's been the discussion in-house, so I'm hoping we stick to it.
Political environment's gonna tell you whether it can happen or not. That's the big thing. And I hate to say it, but we're all in that circumstance.
Yeah.
When we can, I'll be real honest, you can take people on the call, the people in this room. We could rewrite the code, we could do the things that we need to do to fix it, but the problem is, it's not in our hands once it leaves that door.
Yeah, I mean, there's been other applications in other divisions where they've required now people submit everything electronically, so it's not like we would be breaking new ground for sure, so. Dave,
Sarah Simmons has her hand up, so I just wanted to.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, that's why
Yeah,
it's in front of me,
yeah.
so I'm,
Thanks,
go ahead, Sarah.
Hey, this question's for Anita. What percentage of well drillers are not using well logic? Like how big of an issue is this? Because this seems like it's been a conversation for many, many years. So are we talking like 5%, 10%, 50%? What's the?
there's 62 contractors. 62 sounds like a lot, but it's really not, because we have 700 and some well drillers. And I mean, there's, of those 62, maybe half drill 50 wells a year. I mean, some of them drill like 5 wells. So it's by far the majority are using Well Logic. We get about 90% or so of our well records submitted electronically now. It's just this last little 10% or like 1,200, 1,300 records that we still get on paper
So.
for whatever reason.
I'm curious. I mean, we don't need to do it today, but maybe you could share those with Buddy and we could, I don't know. I probably know who they are, so I could have a discussion and see what the issue is and see if there's anything we could help with.
That would be wonderful, Glenn.
I'm not
Thanks.
making promises, but I promise to try.
Oh, you said.
I promise to try is what I meant.
Okay. I'll get that info to you.
It's interesting to me, being on the national board, to listen to different. Indiana has no way to put them. Here, Minnesota and Wisconsin. In Minnesota, to be a well driller, you have to have an electrician's license and a plumbing license.
Wow.
All the same person holding those or just within the company or, wow, that would be,
That's a lot.
that's a lot. That would be a big
Work
accomplishment.
out in Washington State are the worst. Are the worst.
As far as requiring.
Requiring,
Licensing.
so, right, licenses and continuing education and everything, those 2 states are the worst, worse than California.
Is a continuing education through the state that holds the licensure?
Worst or best, Buddy?
The best,
You say
Yeah, 'cause
continuing education, you tell it, is that good to have continuing education and not have?
well,
Let's look at that.
when it's all over the scale, it's like anything else, in some states it's great. Some states it's a joke, some states it doesn't exist, I mean,
Right. Yeah, I know.
some
I'm
states
just.
they have it, and, you could go to a Holiday Inn on a weekend and watch something on basketball, maybe you're gonna get your CE points, I'm serious.
Yeah.
So,
I was just teasing you.
what's that?
I was just kidding you.
I
I mean,
know Washington and Washington, Oregon. California, they're drilling. Okay,
For Well Logic, anyway.
well, thank you. Appreciate that. Pressure switches and battery tank installations.
Yeah, I took some notes here, so I'm gonna be, as far as our update goes on here, I first want to thank Buddy for hey, Brett. For putting out the word and getting some pictures of some buried tank installations for us that we didn't have before.
Good.
We're gonna definitely be using some of those pictures in the document and really appreciate you helping us out there. Also want to thank Glenn from Valley Farms for not only providing pictures, but he also provided us some suggestions for the guidance document and also gave us some pictures, for the well zone installs, which has kind of been a focus for us on the document. And also, he was, helping looking into, getting some possible members, for the subcommittee. For this, for kind of trying to finish this thing up. And I know we've talked about the subcommittee before, and I still believe it's something that, you know, we should try and move forward with. We could still use, a few more pictures of the actual installation themselves, so I'd be more than willing to go out, you know, when some of these are going in, so like, I'll give you an example on the rhombus system, you know, where the transducer is actually going into the pit lists inside the well, like pictures of the actual installation itself,
Oh, okay.
like
Yeah.
things along those lines, like, so if we could get, you know, that, and also like, once the document's together, some contractors to look it through and make sure that, you know, it makes sense to them, and make sure that it's a document that's good, obviously, so. And I know, when, Dan had gotten back, I had talked to him, and Glenn had mentioned it too, about, getting Dan involved, and trying to find a couple contractors that kind of do these installations more.
I got one for you, Greg McCarty.
Um,
Oh, better tank installations, that's all they do over there, Southwest. Yeah, Greg McCarty is a good one, and I'm actually texting him right now.
okay.
Right.
So, yeah, once, and I can continue to work with Glenn and Dan as well to try and get some names together and see if we can get that subcommittee moving, and, hopefully we can, continue to push this thing forward. We do have one complicating factor. Basically the document was written in accordance with the 2015 residential code. Right now, they're in the process of updating to 2021. And the last time I was at the plumbing board, they were actually even considering bypassing 21 and going to 24.
I heard.
So, you know, I don't really wanna put something completely out there and then have to immediately update it to if we do upgrade to 24. So we're gonna keep moving. Like I said, it is a complicating factor, but I'll know more, I think February 4th. I go to the plumbing board meeting, and I'll get more details there as well. So as far as what direction they're gonna be moving in, because I know, I think it was, I believe in July and August, it had pretty much gone through JCAR and everything through 2021, so.
Yeah, I got a friend whose friend is on the plumbing board, they've been keeping me on. Called and said, here, I can believe they're gonna bypass 21. It goes, what? Just everything, COVID slowed down there. Great thing about COVID, I could find a parking lot. I don't have a problem.
And I know Chad had volunteered to help as one of the
Chad would be great,
contractors as well.
I'll get you, yeah.
Yeah, so. Appreciate that, Chad, volunteering. So that's pretty much the update on, varied pressure tank guidance document.
Glenn and I were talking today, there's a possibility that there could be a lockout tagout requirement on all wells. Period, home, everything, where you have a disconnect box and everything, it has to have the ability to be locked out. It's not there. But it's been talked about.
Would that be something that Driller would do? Would that be something that Driller would do?
No, we don't do it anyways,
Right.
but it would be. I mean, it's one more thing, we're the ones that have to tell the customer what they're required to do, especially in a residential replacement wall. Say, okay, well, here's the deal, you're gonna put this in, you gotta get your electrician to come in and put it in, you know, it's the same thing, you know, we can't turn a valve on, they get your water sample, that whole adds to our list of buyer beware kind of stuff, you know. Okay. The revision of best practice, close loop, DGM. I have a whole bunch of stuff I gotta get rid of. I've been going over it with, last week, but I have not done going through it. A lot of it, I'm educating him on,
Sure.
but, I'll have my response to you probably Wednesday, I would guess Wednesday.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I can kind of go through where we've been from last time. I think that'll line
I've
up.
got something interesting to share that happened.
So, for those that maybe weren't here last time or aware, the last revision of our best practices document for vertical closed loop was 2010. We did one minor update, like, putting DEQ and things like that in the document, but nothing significant. So, it did need some updating. So, what I ended up doing was identifying, stakeholders, which, was in the previous, which is in the document itself, kind of started there, but I ended up, getting a grout manufacturer, 5 drilling contractors, plumbing and mechanical contracting, organization, Lara, the mechanical division, Eagles, obviously, a couple of people within Eagle, including the energy folks. 2 folks from the health department from Baliha and Miha, and also somebody from DTE. Sent an email out, on October 24th and put in a December 31st deadline seeking input on the document modification. I put in there kind of our minimum modifications that we'd like to see, which include, definitions, especially in the grouting end of things, qualifications on the installers, updating the resources, available to determine if contamination sites are in the area, update the citations, in regards to current versions like residential code, things along those lines. Also update standards for grout placement, heat transfer fluids. And also, within the appendix, the geothermal grouts that are there, and then simply replacing DEQ with EGLE. So there's a lot that just without input from everyone else, we'd like to see some changes on, but I sent out a reminder December 11th because I hadn't gotten any comments back at that point, but at this point, I've gotten comments back from a number of state agencies, including Lara. Both health department representatives have given comments back. And I've also gotten comments back from mechanical contractor group and the grout manufacturer. So at this point, we're going to take Eagle's modifications and inputs from everybody else. I'm going to try and incorporate into a document. And then from there, we're probably going to have at least one meeting to talk about it and then go from there.
Is it a lot of widespread, or it's pretty much narrowed down to a few things?
From the stakeholders themselves, I see a lot of issue with some of the isolation distances. More so than I see that more than probably than anything
I got
else.
this question for yesterday, why we have to stay with the property?
Yeah, and also, distance between lines and sewer lines and, distances, so it's all stuff. to
So
look
I
at.
had an interesting talking about this, and remember I mentioned that there's enough projects out for bid right now in the state of New York that would take 10,000 drill rigs. Well, it's coming this way, so I got a call first part of December. John is from Ann Arbor. He works in the geothermal industry, but he also works for all the associations and ISTO and everything else. And he goes out and trains HVAC contractors on geothermal, helps them improve their geothermal, and that's what he does for the association, shows them how to make money. So the biggest complaint they were getting became the drillers. So he comes to me and he says, why can't we get drillers? And I said, because it's you're making it a race to the bottom. There's no money in it.
Mhm.
I said, your contractors have to get over it. I said, and I had the conversation, and he said, yeah, we're gonna have all these projects, nobody to drill them. I said, exactly, that's why we're gonna put legislation in, so not everybody can drill them. I said, because I said, the drilling process for geothermal, top to bottom, different goal, different, different set of objectives, but the drilling is the same. And I said, you're drilling through the same stuff that we drill for the water wells, we have to be careful of what we're doing. And I said, you gotta make it worthwhile for the contractor to show up, be there, go through the same, because a lot of these are bigger projects, safety meetings, you know, and complete the project, not say, hey, I'm done, I'm gonna go do something else, I'm not making any money. I said, because we have more money invested in equipment than the whole project's worth. So he went back with that, but he was interested that, and happy that he said, because it's the law, he said in our legislation already is. Most of the counties that geothermal's happening in have their own set of requirements. He said, but we don't have a state requirement.
Yeah, I've been getting a lot of outside drilling firms calling me asking about requirements. And most of them are related to projects down in Ann Arbor area.
Yep,
And a lot of those borings are 1,000 feet plus.
yeah, that's what I've heard. Yeah, I've heard the same thing.
That is some serious drilling down there.
Right. Well, there's not a lot of guys that can do that. You know?
Well, I mean, and I tell them too, I'm like, the closer you get, it's more prevalent down in Monroe because a lot of that stuff's at the surface and but you're gonna get a lot of lost circulation. You're gonna get a lot of really bad water quality when you start getting those limestones down there. So I'm
Right.
like, you really need to be careful.
Right. Well, they're gonna be mixing.
Oh, that too.
Too.
Yeah, just getting to that depth.
Right, different set of goals.
Oh,
Right, how fast can I get there? How many holes can I get done a day? How many loops can I get in? That
Totally.
makes much more cost.
But is this mainly federal money that they're using?
Yeah,
Or,
Inflation Reduction Act.
Yeah.
So do you understand how that works?
yes,
Everybody, 80% of your apprentice. So if you have one supervisor and 15 apprentices, 80% of their pay will be paid by the Inflation Reduction Act for 2 years. So if that's 60% of your workforce, or 70 or 80, you're only paying 20%. So we're charging 100%.
Sarah's got a
Go ahead,
her hand up.
Sarah.
Yeah, Dave, I can't remember, and I know that there is a reason, but I don't remember what it was. Why was not open loop included in this conversation around geothermal?
Open loop is regulated under the well code. Are you talking about the best practices document?
Yes.
Yeah, the open loop, the well and everything else is regulated under the well code, so. That portion of it is pretty much covered. The best practices came out really like in 2010 and we're looking at it now because it isn't regulated and we wanted to come up with a document strictly for vertical closed loops so that if health departments did want to adopt it or contractors wanted to come in and see what we thought should be getting done, they'd have something to reference.
No, I think it would be great. I think that there's a lot of inconsistency across the state with how they're done and where they're done and who can do them. So I think it would be a win for the well drilling community, to be honest. It'd be great if it could be supported.
Well, I think the goal is to get a document that we can introduce.
Yeah, and I guess that's our next point here on the unfinished business.
Yeah.
We do have a stakeholder group together now, a small one, for the best practices document. And we do have draft legislation that in 2018 already went through a stakeholder process, which I forwarded that to you and Mike, I think, in October. But I definitely think based on the comments I'm getting from the smaller stakeholder group, and if I can get comments from the well drilling industry, because one of the questions that I face is when we start talking about qualifications, as far as, because we still have EGLE type stuff in there and so I can have my ideas on what I think, qualifies someone to do this, but in the end, I have to have, some buy-in from you guys, so I need feedback
Every
from you guys on
welder
this
that I
stuff.
talk to, the registered contractor, believes to be on the back of the drill rig drilling a hole any deeper than 20 foot, you need the same qualifications we have. Period.
Yeah.
Period. And if anybody's on the call that disagrees, I want to hear your reason. Anybody have a reason? And say, everybody, one of the reasons Johnny Newbecker, you guys know Johnny, would be Jim's son, would be Eric and Jerry's nephew. One of the whole reasons he got on MGWA board to try to help push requirements for geothermal. Be registered or similar to us. Oh, correct, the draft is closed, correct? So I guess once we get all our ducks in a row, Dave, I guess I'm gonna go ahead and ask the board for support, and I'll probably have to have a little money. And Mike and I'll pick a legislator to approach and then
Okay,
introduce it, because I think the environmental climate and political climate are close enough. I think we could probably get it through. I mean, if we can ban a 2 million gallon a day well, we can sure get some geothermal legislation through the climate.
yeah, I know the last time in 2018, when we kind of went through this process and the stakeholder process, you guys had said that, you could potentially introduce it and, it ended up falling back on the department and we couldn't even find a sponsor at that point.
Yeah,
So,
I think political is part of the reason, but we're gonna have to use some of our political quality this. I think it's important. At least I do. I have to ask the board's permission, obviously, but.
Yeah.
I think it's an easy sell.
but yeah,
Right. Sound right back, obviously, you have it, what it takes.
You know how many other states on average that require registration for geothermal contractors? Is there a lot? Minnesota, I think you said that.
I think, Indiana, no. Wisconsin, I believe so, California, yes,
California, so that.
Oklahoma, no. Iowa, no, Nebraska, yes,
Oh, really?
yeah.
Oh.
I'm not sure about east of the Mississippi. I could find out about, South Carolina and those states, I think.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it really doesn't, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but it does to be able to say,
Serious, yeah. so-
here, right, here is all the states requirement. So, okay, all right. That's where I'm at. I think hopefully by our next meeting, maybe we can have the direction we're going in, because I'd like to get this in somebody's hands before this, the break of the summer session. So we come back next fall and maybe try to get it out of committee and on the floor.
well, I mean, when I kind of look at it, like I said, I feel like the best practices is moving forward and we have a small stakeholder group that, since 2018, the last time that we had the draft legislation looked
Right.
at, we all kind of agreed on.
Right,
We've got a smaller group that's kind of looking at the best practices, and that's gonna take some time because, as we generate that and get the comments, I was thinking like we would probably then, once we kind of had buy-in on most of that stuff, we would do any updates to the legislation, and then we would open it up to a bigger group. In order to have it done by next time, that is not the approach I would have to take.
well, then what we'll do, we'll try to work as fast as we can. Because we have pretty good time in the legislature, but I know I have a governor right now who will sign it. That's my.
Sure.
Make sure I got a governor level sign. You know,
I think she would sign it. My question, I know you guys can't answer this, is what kind of political capital is the department? Towards a salary.
we'll take that as.
We can sit here in this room and say, yes, it's a good thing, but, you know, it's gonna go up the food chain and they're gonna have different priorities, and we may not be on that list.
Well, we'd have to talk to Jim over here. Probably. Or would you rather have Eric take it over and go up and ask? I'm gonna ask you that, Dana, because you know that.
Yeah, I know that Dave and I talked immediately after this meeting last month or last quarter, and kind of fuzzy to me, the direction we had done in the past and what that means for the direction now. So I don't really have any comments, honestly. Yeah, we need more, I'm gonna make that one point, I'm gonna have an internal meeting, and we'll talk about this.
Thank you. I just, explore which avenue you want.
Yeah,
But I can't, I don't know the climate.
well, and it's not so much the plan, it is the priorities, there's,
Right.
yeah, it's what the priorities are, so.
I mentioned 10,000 drill rigs in New York, and that might get your attention.
But there's a lot of different stuff going on, yeah, so, I just had that.
Well, and I also think that, beside the department stance on this, we as an association, powers that be, can make the decision whether we're gonna charge the hill, and then you guys can come along.
Exactly.
And, we don't need, no disrespect, but I don't need Phil Roos's blessing or non-blessing to go charge that hill,
Right,
to go find a sponsor.
but it sure would be nice to have somebody driving the car with us.
Oh, absolutely. I wanna be able to go into some of the offices and say, yeah, the department supports this.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we have a piece of draft legislation that 6 years ago, every single stakeholder gave a thumbs up to. I mean, I don't think we're necessarily that far off,
I don't
but
think very.
at the same time, I mean, there have been some technological advances, there have been some small changes that couldn't hurt to go in there potentially, so.
Right. Well, I think, to be honest with you, this is one of my top priorities to get done.
And the thing is, if we decide we wanna abandon the best practices and move with the legislation, obviously that would be a priority set by others, not me. That would be, could be something that could be looked at by our management too.
Which I think the way you're doing it now, because then you have something one way or another.
Well, and, reviewing the bills, at some point, our friends at the local health department better get their blessing.
Right.
Because they can't charge the hill and say, oh, by the way, here's your all the rules and responsibilities you gotta take on.
They regulate this, thank you, bye.
Yeah, and Tony's sitting there going, oh, all right, how am I gonna do this? I don't have the cash.
I mean, for me, moving forward, the thing if I were to put any kind of priority, I think I need comments back from you guys.
You got it, okay. You're gonna have it.
I gave my comments to Buddy, so.
All right, anybody have anything else on the legislation statute? Okay. Contract examination information, hey,
I received, this information from Kathy Gardner, as far as, the last exam and upcoming exam, so as far as results go from the October 2024 exam results, we had 3 well drillers that did retakes. 1 passed, and then the other 2 failed, but Kathy allowed them to come back in December and retake the portions that they had failed, and they passed. So all the retakes technically all passed this time, even though they had to retake a section in December. We had 4 new well drillers take the exam. We had 1 pass, and 3 failed, but out of 2 of those, they were able to pass the pump installer exam, so they took basically the registration as a pump installer. And those guys plan to retake the well driller portion in April to see if they can get the well driller portion of it instead of just being a pump installer. And then we had 6 pump installers, new come in, 2 passed, 4 failed, and 1 of them did a retake in December and passed, so, and then 2 of those guys are gonna retake in April, which is when the next exam is. Right now, like I said, we've got 5 retakes for April 4th, 2025. And we've had 2 well drillers, put in new applications, which the last time I talked to Kathy, which was the other day, their applications were considered incomplete. And that's where it sits.
Interesting.
But they haven't.
I had just one comment.
Sure.
I think it's awesome that you're offering the flexibility for some of these gentlemen that kind of just missed, passing their exams, and allow them to go back and study some more and get it across the finish line. I guess bottom line is we need to get these guys across the finish line, and the fact that you're working with them to get the training they need to finally get that, I think that's really great.
Just on a personal level, one thing that all of us involved in the well driller exam and along those lines this time around, just an observation, when Dan's been involved with that little mini course that he does, the guys do significantly better.
And yeah, I would say in that.
So-
They're less nervous. when
Yeah.
Dan's involved, and they have more of that prep, so.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Dan does a really good job at getting people ready for the exam, and I definitely think there's some benefit to that, so I just wanted to put that out there.
So I hear Dan can't retire, so that's all I have to say.
Is that Glenn? I do have one comment to carry to Kathy. We were looking at in review on page 40, somewhere there is an example that we're going to review and make sure that the example is right. Okay. So pass that on to Kathy. Number 2 is it's interesting in the numbers that you share with us, how many of those actually had the opportunity or took the opportunity to go through the fundamentals course. And number 3 is every time I participate in that, I probably learn as much as they do, because there's some pretty sharp people that come in and share in moving that forward. So we're really blessed with that group and doing that. So we were surprised that in the test before that, before I left for the summer, we had 17 people come into Valley Farms in Grand Rapids, and that was surprising. I'm not always comfortable in speaking in a big group, but we will try to keep participating as a program to help support that.
Thanks, Dan. With that, that's pretty much kind of unfinished business of everybody, unless anybody has any comments. We'll move on to new business, and seeing as how you were talking, Dan, why don't you talk about Michigan? Oh, go ahead.
You want to go back to Brad?
Yeah, Brad.
Yeah.
We go back there.
Oh, well, I know Matt gave the update.
Yeah, he did.
The only thing he missed.
You're dead to us.
That's okay. Any
I'll get the
issues,
door.
any issues can be emailed after January 17th.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We did also have one thing that Matt missed on his, we had a plumbing company that was doing chlorination and advertising well drilling on their website. We sent them cease and desist. They called us to get clarification on what they could advertise, clarification on what they can and can't do. And it should be resolved.
Very good.
Well, okay, we appreciate that. That is a problem, probably throughout the state. There was a plumbing company, probably in the same area you're talking about.
It's the
That
same,
was
it's the same company. It's the same company.
Yeah, pulling pumps and jetting wells with a sewer jet.
Oh, that's a different one.
I'm not kidding.
Extra guidance.
Yeah, I've got the bill.
Oh.
I haven't got the bill. Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. I made that phone call. I wasn't.
We actually gas anymore, but.
And those are a pretty quick turnaround time, because we have canned language for this assessments.
Thank you. I'm sorry, didn't mean to, and I appreciate that here. We're now at the point, Dan, why don't you talk about the Michigan Groundwater Association's event that you've helped organize?
Can we ask if Brad is going to have a successor?
No,
Okay.
For the purpose of this, we Matt's gonna take over.
Okay. Brad can be replaced, but just wondering if there's someone going to succeed.
go ahead, Dan.
Okay. You know, once again, thanks for the opportunity to serve. And I have to say, thanks for Glenn, because Glenn makes it possible for me to serve. The 2025 Michigan Groundwater Association conference is pretty well documented at this point. February 18th and 19th in Frankenmuth. Currently, we have 22 sanitarians that are coming in for the fundamentals course. We always like to see that. Just for a note, that when you register as a sanitarian, if you use the capital letters LHD, local health department, LHD, you get the corresponding discount. So I am putting out a letter to Kevin Green with, I believe, Maliha. He's in Ottawa. He's going to put that on listserv or get that out once again to the directors, I believe, so that they have the opportunity to register more sanitarians. That's been a pretty good course for all of us involved. They currently just printed 150 manuals, so they're in line with having that and supporting. Kevin Green, and also talking to Kevin and getting that information out, talked about that it'd be nice to have a presentation on historic equipment that the sanitarians may or can run into that they just don't have any background. So I'll probably work with Glenn and put out a request that if you see historic older equipment that really isn't documented very well, we would love to have pictures for that, for maybe a simple presentation at the health department level for the new sanitarians, so that it doesn't surprise them every day. Let's see.
Dan?
Drilling demos. I probably could help. We could help working with the MGWA board if we knew what locations are interested. So we would like to participate with that. And lastly, I did commit and will help with trying to dig up some of the buried tank pictures and things like that. So that's all I have.
Dan?
Yes.
Dan, can I ask just a clarification question, because I'm the well driller in the room? What equipment are you referring to? Are you referring to antiquated well drilling equipment or antiquated equipment installations that are installed, like old pump jacks and hand pumps? Or are you
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes, installed equipment.
Installed.
Kevin says, there's so many new sanitarians, and what equipment you can run into in cottage areas and, areas of concern. And Glenn and I can help. We can dig through some of the old publications and find some of that. So
Yeah,
I
I
know
wasn't,
that
I wasn't,
Great ear, buy and control and show them that.
I wasn't privy to what your conversation with Kevin, but I do think that that's a really great idea. We have a lot of lake areas in our community, and one of the biggest things that gets sanitarians stumped is shallow jet wells. It's not something they deep well jets, explain the Venturi process, all that stuff that they don't typically see because of a lot of the really great well drilling that's happened where, they're looking at more, a 4 or 5 inch diameter well, and it's a submersible pump. And then they come across this thing that they've never seen before. And that's when it's kind of like an opportunity to really um, tell the story of well drilling and kind of its evolution and all of the different ways that they used to drill wells and how they got to that point with the actual construction. Um, and helping people understand, I think it really gets into that whole area of like the importance of a protected suction line and things like that, where, we take it for granted that with the newer design wells that is done, but it helps reinforce the reasons why why the well construction code wasn't what it is today, or it helps them navigate and figure out how to um, even retrofit stuff. So when you have a well driller that's creative and really trying to help a homeowner navigate a situation that could be really pretty costly for them, how do they rationalize the logic of what the well driller knows will work as opposed to fighting them on it? So I think it's a fantastic idea. I think it would be a really, really great thing for, especially when we have newer sanitarians come in. And I think most well drillers would agree with this, is that when they first start, they're pretty black and white. They don't see the gray. And a lot of well work, I think, in my opinion, with construction and stuff, you have to be able to see the gray and how it will work, not how it fits to the letter to the T of the code, because sometimes it's just not always just as black and white as you want it to be in the code. So I support that idea. I think it would be a great idea.
Well, Sarah, as you were talking, you say, well, okay, what can we present? But if we look at the Water Systems Council publication on water, they have some great pictures, and there's enough explanation that we can probably carry an easily a full hour or 40-minute course. So thank you. You put it where can we get this? But it's
Yeah.
a picture doesn't always do it. But if we can get a picture with a slight short explanation, that's the knowledge base that we're probably looking for.
Right, because one of my experiences, I worked in and I know Mike Wallfield knows our community quite well, but I worked in an area in Northeast Kent County where they had a lot of lake lots, they had a lot of shallow jet wells, and it actually took me meeting up with a well driller who was willing to show me what all of this stuff meant so we could work better together. So I think it is a real opportunity. I think if people can see those tangible parts and understand how they all interconnect and what to look for and things like that, I think it would create a lot less headache for everybody in the end.
Going back to the education, the education conference, working through that schedule. On one of the days, we have 3 hours, and it includes hydraulics and maintenance and another subject. And it doesn't really, if there are advanced people from the sanitarian levels, almost would like to have a third class that would give an opportunity in that time frame. We've got the fundamentals, and then we have a advanced well drilling portion, and I have a hard time digesting what a sanitarian wants to sit through that if they're not sitting through the fundamentals. So in the long run, I would like to probably ask maybe some type of a little program that would be sanitarian based if we have another time where we need not a filler, but something for the sanitarians.
You said we have a time slot for that?
Well, we have a time slot for it. We just I have to go over and make sure we have a room, and I think we would, but, you know, even a simple case study or something along that line. It's not in the program, but I think that, you know, when we come to that area, if we made it available, it probably would be a nice option.
I'll give you a call. We'll figure it out, Dan.
Thank you.
Buddy?
Yeah.
Buddy,
Yeah, John.
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I thought that Sarah's comments about the older wells, and especially the jet pumps and the drive points and the 2-inch wells, very appropriate. I find it interesting that she had considerable experience with that, and that's great. But you got to understand that some counties, and Washtenaw is the leader in this, say if you've got a 2-inch well or a 3-inch well, just junk it and drill a new well, almost without exception.
Yeah, but Washington County also, do they have point of sale? Yeah.
Yes, well, it's not just point of sale, but if they are having problems, the consumer may contact the local health department. And yeah, there are a lot of old 2-inch wells that need to be abandoned, but there are some that still work. But it's pretty much, I believe, the policy: junk it, drill a 5-inch PVC well. And so that's my half a cent worth on that.
Thanks, John. Anybody else have anything on the conference? We'll go to with the switch.
Yeah, we can run over to this. So I'm not sure if everyone had a chance to watch the video that I sent out under the Outlook. It's a short video. If people want, I can play it a quick second.
Go ahead. It's not that long.
Okay.
I have a bunch of questions and a lot of concerns.
So. And the installation that I'm gonna be talking about is slightly different than this, but it's basically the gist of it. So casing might be a little damaged or having issues, so they're expanding it out, trying to bring it back to its original size here. And then you kind of see this corrugated piece of stainless steel that's basically essentially going to line the casing itself. And they put this device in and basically expand it up against the wall. Now I'll wait for it to end. And you can see as it goes down, it continues to expand it out as it goes, because they can come in different lengths. So the one that basically the Grand Rapids District Office, there's a type 1 well. I don't think there's anything confidential about any of this. So it's basically Grand Rapids District. We've got a contractor that typically deals with type 1 wells exclusively. There's a well that basically has got some pinholes and some holes in the casing. They want to follow basically what we just watched on the video, but basically they want to put a neoprene, basically a bladder or a covering between the stainless and the casing, basically for better sealing from a water perspective. When I look at it, first question I ask, because of the Safe Drinking Water Act, if it's coming into contact with your water, it has to meet NSF. And they have not provided all the documentation related to that, but they're basically saying it meets a standard, and we'll see how that plays out. The question that I ask myself is, because they want to use this not as kind of a, well, we're going to install one of these things, but we're going to be looking at a new well, you know, in the near future. They want to use this as basically a permanent fix in the long term. And, you know, a lot of times when someone gets, you know, a few holes in the casing or small pinholes, you know, they will use a smaller steel casing, which has a certain structure to it, and then they will fill the annular space between that casing that's kind of broken up a little bit in the inner casing. And also when they do that, that cement will actually make its way out into the formation and kind of help things out in that direction. So, you know, a lot of my issue when I look at this, I think, well, does this stainless steel patch have the kind of structural integrity or strength that, say, a liner would have? And also, when you're expanding this thing, you know, really, is it something that, how do you really know that you're getting the sealing kind of qualities that cement would have in that annular space between the two casings? So I had kind of brought those questions up, like I said, and Brandon Onan, section chief, that, well, actually now he's not section chief anymore, he was promoted, but I told him I would bring it up at the meeting today and get input from the drillers today. So here we are.
I have a bunch.
Okay.
First, doesn't fall and can't fall within the code, we meet the requirements. My opinion. Of how the casing is installed with the grout on the outside for a liner, that's number one. I have concerns with the process, and my concern is especially if the holes and the stuff are in an area, is there a void around it? And if they take this wedge down there and they open it up, are they opening it up wider? How can they guarantee they can't? They can't. That's number one. Number two, when you get it down there, if there's a burr or a barnacle or something and it doesn't open up all the way, you don't have any type of a seal around the outside. To me, this process does not fall within 127 requirements. As written. I'm not saying this might not be a viable thing in the future, but as our code is written, I can't see, if you allow this, then I should be able to put a PVC liner in and walk away.
Well, the well code basically applies, most of the well code applies at the time of initial installation. Liners are a whole different animals after the fact.
Yeah.
So this would be considered a liner after the fact. So, you know, it still has to meet certain requirements, but, as far as what you would be considered to be initial construction requirements, it would not have to meet that. It would have to meet liner requirements.
Meaning no grouting, doesn't have to be grouted.
That is one of the things, yeah.
That's a huge one.
But this is also type one.
It is.
I know what you're saying, type one residential, right, what's? On a liner,
Have any of the drillers seen one of these go in? Any experience with them? I guess that was my first question.
John, are you?
I have a comment. Buddy
go ahead.
and Dave. You had an excellent pictorial that I viewed earlier. And it seems to me this process is for 6-inch wells and larger. Now, if I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I am, the vast majority of residential wells in Michigan are residential, or at least the majority, maybe not the vast majority, and very few of those are 6-inch. Am I correct?
Yeah, this installation and this contractor in particular only works on type one wells, and this would be.
I know who you're
for type
talking
one.
about. I know who you're talking about. If you don't need to, we won't need to use any names. They've been in business a long time. But you know, it seems to me this is, well, my thought is this is strictly big wells, type one wells, 12-inch and 16-inch and stuff like that, and that's fine. I gotta be honest, it looks like a hokey fix to a real problem. That's one man's opinion. Thank you.
Well, I have one other concern. What's to keep it from going?
The pressure is basically it, up against the sides.
The whole. My concern is the two, over expanding the permanent casing that's there. And then ensuring that there's a permanent seal around all of the stainless steel liner, top to bottom, circumference and all the way around. That would be my only concern. And how would you prove it with a camera?
I mean, for me, like, and I'm sure you've seen it before too. I've seen a couple pinholes, but to be perfectly honest with you, you don't know what's going on, above it, below it, behind it, and those pinholes are just a indicator of something much worse, and you can't really assess that, so, yeah, I mean, and, if the casing is truly like, even though it shows a couple pinholes, but you're basically on the edge of the casing, just essentially failing, do you really want to install a fairly thin stainless steel liner to?
Doesn't meet A53B specs? Or
It's three, I've seen that it's 304 and 316. I'm not sure which one or both. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's NSF approved either, as we know by Chinese stainless in the past.
Right.
So, I mean, I look at it from the perspective from a regulatory perspective, the easiest thing to, if we were going to reject it, would be on the NSF side, which hasn't been worked out yet. And if it does work out and it does meet NSF, then, you're looking at it from a liner perspective, which most of when it comes to like Part 8 in the Safe Drinking Water Act, groundwater sources and the well code, almost everything in the well code and the Safe Drinking Water apply at the time of initial construction.
Yeah.
And liners have their own, after the fact, have their own kind of,
There's their gray area.
yeah, so, you can't, it's gonna be really difficult to point at this and just say it's illegal according to the code or because the Safe Drinking Water Act because of this. And,
And
what's that?
your hands are a little bit tight.
Yeah, they are. And the thing is I'm not here and none of us are here to reject a product if it actually works and it's a good thing. And there may be instances, like I said, when I talked with Brandon, I said there may be instances where, maybe there's a couple pinholes and you allow it as a temporary fix until they can get a new well in a couple of years down the road. But what's being proposed is this is a permanent fix.
I have a question because of experience. And a gravel well or a rock well?
Well, it would be in the casing, but
I
this,
understand, but I'm just asking a question because it would make me feel better thinking about it, just sitting here. As if it was a bedrock well, they start at the bottom of the casing and then put this steel liner or stainless all the way up above.
yeah, they
Other
wouldn't be
than a
doing that.
patch in between, because patches in between, there's already water there. I don't know how you're gonna squeeze, even with 3,000 pounds of pressure, everything out to make the seal. That's but we have, like you said, your hands are tight.
Yeah, I mean, most of the time they're putting them in like 2-4 foot sections and then they basically they stack them up. Like I said, with a, I do my best to try and discourage trying to rehab wells that are, in really, really bad shape, because they should really be looking at a new well. This well, they're basically saying they think there's plenty of life left in it. There's just a couple holes and this is the cheapest way to go to fix it. So,
Band-Aid. Date on a broken arm.
yep. So, and they're, like I said, they're pretty pushy and they're not gonna take no for an answer.
Better, yeah. So commercials.
I had one quick comment, if I may.
Sure.
We always, when we find pinholes in a casing like that, we always feel it's like, well, anything you do to patch that is going to be like doing open heart surgery on a 90-year-old guy. You can do it, but you might kill the patient. So that, I guess that's just how we feel about it. So.
You're right, Mike.
Sarah, you had your hand up for a minute, then you took it down.
Yeah, I do, because I guess I'm just trying to wonder, I'm wondering, like, because steel casing has to have a specific ASTM. So if they're patchworking the casing, so to speak, does that somehow disqualify it or negate that certification that the steel casing has? And then the other question I have is more along the lines, I guess it's a technical question. It's like, it just doesn't, I don't know, this doesn't seem very logical to me to do. It doesn't seem to make sense to me, like physically, like the science behind it. And how do they assure that they're not altering the integrity of the entire casing by this one patchwork?
They can't.
Biggest concern.
I mean, I think without more information, I just don't, it fundamentally doesn't make sense to me, and it seems like a scam.
I could see in the case, and I'm just gonna think out loud. So I noticed this company that you showed the demos, California.
Yeah, that's just a video I found.
Right.
They're not
Well,
relevant to it.
California, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado. Not so much Washington, Oregon, Texas. We're talking, the municipal wells are deep cased, very expensive, millions of dollars to drill. I can see where this is in, not only an economic.
Oh, That's what it is. I mean, even.
I can see the advantage there.
Yeah, I mean,
What's the
you
deepest?
know, I
well
mean,
municipal we got in Michigan?
12,
I can tell you right
Tell
now.
me right now.
12, 16-inch steel wells don't run cheap in Michigan. It doesn't matter what their depths are.
Or 2,400 maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think the decision's been made that they were kind of making an argument that it didn't have to be permitted. And I think they've lost that battle, but as far as its use goes, is
Well, you're still fighting the NSF.
Yeah.
Because they want to put rubber
on the outside.
in between the steel. So then you know you're not gonna get a complete.
It'll be up against, it'll be either galvanized or black against a rubber gasket, and then the stainless up against that on the inside.
That would have to meet the steel casing requirements. I think she asked that.
Liners considered permanent casing, but at the same time, there's some questions as to whether or not how that can be enforced. I mean, there is no standard in the well code related to stainless as far as casing goes, but I won't mention names, but there's some very expensive wells, like people that have a lot of money that serve a lot of people that you have used stainless as wells and have gotten approval in Michigan.
I got a call last week.
Yeah, one type 1 well, 1,290 feet in Delta County.
Delta County?
The next ones are, that was from 1973. The next ones are in the 800s. Also in the UP at Schoolcraft. 815, 802.
How much case?
Hmm,
Those gotta be bedrock wells.
180.
Yeah, say it's. Well, I guess
Oh, here's one case. Well, that's wrong. Okay.
I have concerns with it, but again, if it meets code. I look at it the other side, what if I had a driller come to me and said, I met the code, I did this, it means this, it means this, it means this, how can I not support them?
Mhm.
I guess if they're, for type 1 wells or what we're gonna call, 399 wells, wouldn't that be a different standard altogether regardless? Because that's such a very specific law.
Yeah, the 399 is part 8 groundwater sources, and that's what you'd have to reference as far as what they would have to meet. There's not a lot of discussion about liners in there.
Right. Because I mean, if something went really south, the negative health impact on that could be really, really big. I don't know. I guess in my mind, I'd almost be more in favor of it being, if it became acceptable to be used on an individual residential basis than as opposed to a municipal water supply. Just because of the magnitude of impact if something went really wrong.
Oh, and there's plenty of type 1 wells that get lined with steel
Right.
casing and meet cement.
Need some, right,
And,
Yeah,
you know,
and that to me feels a little bit
me too.
has a greater level of risk reduction than what's being proposed.
Yes.
okay, well, I guess. We didn't give you any answers, Dave.
Well, I mean, like I said, I would bring it to the group, and this group has a vast amount of knowledge, and I just wanted to see what kind of comments people had and if they had any experience with it. And no, everybody's input was appreciated.
Thank you. Well, anybody else have any comments on that? Oh, I want to bring up one other thing under new business, and I'll have Mike talk about and raise it, and it's going to affect, you're probably gonna hear it again, is this paid sick leave thing is going to affect every well, whether we have one,
Affect our health department partners as well.
whatever. It's gonna increase our cost exponentially.
Stable place.
And so probably here in the next few weeks, you'll start hearing people grumbling, because you guys get calls, I know you do. But wells are gonna go up. Service is gonna go up. And it's gonna be not double, triple, but it's gonna be, probably 20%.
Okay.
I'm guessing. I'll put the council to mine next week. My hourly rate's probably gonna go up. $25 more because of it. So. And then the 80-20 rule, which I don't know that one as well.
Well, I'll jump on the paid sick time act as well. Both the House and the Senate came into session yesterday. As per the Constitution, both of them have introduced legislation to address the tip credit, which doesn't affect us, as well as the paid sick time act. And for those of us that haven't followed the paid sick time act as much, you get 1 hour per 30 hours of work calculated. And once you accumulate enough time, you can disappear for 3 days without providing any type of notice. And your employer cannot do anything to you. And if you come back on the 4th day and you say, well, I was sick, and he goes, go get a doctor's appointment, you as the employer have to pay for that, among other things. There's a presumption, the burden of guilt shifts to the employer and not the employee. And the employee can also file a suit against the employer.
I'm like, keep talking, Mike.
And right now, the number I saw yesterday is you can carry forward that time if you don't use it. And they're looking at up to 266 hours, which is over 4 weeks of paid sick leave. Doesn't mean that you get to cash it out if you leave, but you could say today's what, the 10th of January, the 9th of January. I'm gonna quit at the end of the, mid-February. I'm gonna take the next month off. I'm sick and then quit.
Well, you don't have to call in for 3 days.
I don't have to call in for 3 days.
You mean you'll call in saying you're sick?
Pardon me?
No,
I can disappear without any notice for up to 3 days.
You never know what.
Well, it's just crazy.
So, I thought it was silly when it happens. My store backed up in the house sometime between the second and Sunday. So service master was supposed to show up today, and I felt bad for the lady. She called, she said, all but one of our crew called us. All.
I do that a lot too. I think it's the younger job. I'm not anyone, but we're a lot of younger people calling. So I don't think anything about it. It's just years. You know? Yeah.
I have a question. So and I know it's up to 72 hours per week.
Well, it's, if you have, I forgot what your cutoff was, 10 employees or less, you have to offer 40 with up to an additional 35 unpaid. So, and if you are a larger employer, you have to automatically offer 80 hours.
Unpaid.
No, 80 hours of paid.
What's 72?
Was it 72?
72.
And then an additional 35 hours of unpaid.
And then 35 an hour.
Yeah, so there's legislation, both the House and Senate have introduced
And
legislation.
doctor stuff on the unpaid.
No,
After the 72, Gary.
I don't think there's a distinction in the two there. So, but there is legislation trying to address that and correct some of those gaps of what I would say, like, for example, disappearing for 3 days at a time.
Well, I would tell you, it's gonna have a point for the employers, just gonna shoot the employee and bury it, because it's gonna be cheaper.
Well, make sure you have a life insurance on.
This is why they gave the Nearys more money recently.
So the other thing that Buddy brought up was the 80-20 hard cap. And, is all of us, with the exception of Mr. Sebastian, are public employees. I'm a county employee for an appointment that I have. That's not fun. The only thing they have is a $10,000 life insurance policy. I mean, other than that, there's no benefit, but the 80-20 cap is all of us as employees, you have to pay, your employer can make you pay 20% of your health insurance costs. So when you guys do your benefit selection, however, whatever it is, you pick whatever health insurance policy you have and it'll be a cost. And if it goes above a certain dollar amount, you have to kick in that 20%. There's legislation pending. It's not been presented to the governor yet, but it is expected to be presented and signed. That 80% cap now is a minimum floor. So your employer has to pay a minimum of 80% of your insurance up to 105%. So basically an HSA. So if you have, and I don't know if that will be addressed or not. I don't think it will be, but that will affect all public employers. So, and the problem is, for
Not private.
not private, will not affect private. But like, for example, our firm, we have a number of school districts that we represent. Our stance is, we're gonna have to be look, I have this much money to spend. Do you want it in salary or benefits? Because people think, oh, I'm gonna get, more benefits. No, I only have this much money to spend. So your wages may end up being stagnant where your health insurance costs are going up 10-15% a year.
That's not
A lot of cases. No, it's not, but that's the challenge. So.
Right. That was bad news.
You want to talk about lame duck for a minute or?
No,
Okay.
did anything come out that affects this group?
Senator Bayer is going to reintroduce her Senate bill.
Did anything pass?
No, not on that.
Because I didn't think there was.
No, the septic code died. Both the House and Senate septic codes died. I don't know if that's gonna be an effort to do that. I know there has been some discussion, I think at the conference yesterday, and maybe Tony can shed light on this. But there's been talk about trying to do a partial septic where you have the database started, so you start to have an inventory of what's out there. Our only contention with the septic code that when it was going is to make sure that the setback or the isolation distance mirrors the well code that, you know, when you put in a septic, it has to maintain that isolation distance. And that was addressed in both bills. Or both versions, I should say. So I don't know what the appetite is to try to run this again, but I don't think there is a lot of appetite. Yeah. Because it's been 7 years or 6 years since I tried to do it last time in 2018. So. But I personally think, you know, trying to put some effort towards 299, Senate Bill 299, which created a database you can start to put the inventory, as you know, information in there. So that gives you a better idea of when you have to start doing inspections and stuff down the road if it ever passes. It gives you a better idea to calculate what your needs are. So, but that's just me.
All right. Any other old business, other business comments? Anybody online have any comments, other business?
I had just a quick update on the Ottawa County stuff, if you've got a minute. I had been playing phone tag with my good friend Steve Hexel out there in Ottawa County. We both been busy with thawing out frozen pipes and so forth, but I asked him just briefly what he was seeing since the new board members, commissioners have come on board, and there has been after the last election, and I know Mike Frederick probably could explain it a lot better than I can, but some of the Ottawa Impact folks with the more radical viewpoints got voted out of office, and we do have some more balance, I guess you'd say, on the board there now. They did elect a new chairman. And he did apologize to the health department folks and so forth, and actually quite a few different departments for the rough treatment they endured over the last few years. But anyway, Steve says the next Ottawa County Groundwater Board meeting is going to be probably right around the same time our Michigan Groundwater meeting will be, but anyway, he doesn't have a firm date on that yet. He does attend those meetings yet, even though he got voted off from the committee. He says that Lee Michella is still the well driller representative on the Ottawa County Groundwater Board. And the Ottawa County Groundwater Board has moved had moved to add a second well driller on there, but in the end, they got outvoted by the Ottawa Impact Commissioners. They added a third scientist to the board instead. And this person is Jennifer Jones, and she is an Ottawa Impact enthusiast, according to Steve. So, and she's been kind of spearheading an effort to, or her group, I guess, has a contract to clean up Crockery Lake, which is a surface water body. I'm not sure how that plays into this, but he does say that Ottawa County is still moving forward in drilling monitoring wells, which is what we had pushed for a long time. And they're actually going to do what we suggested and create a real database based on some of those monitoring wells. So he's happy to see that much going on. So I guess that's all I have from that, but maybe Mike Fredericks could explain more what happened. I'm not sure how many commissioners were replaced or whatever, but hopefully we're starting to see some more positive things going on, and less budget money being spent on lawsuits and that kind of stuff, and being spent on actual health things. So that's all I've got on that.
Go ahead.
Mike is right. So out of an 11-member body, the County Board of Commissioners, 8 of them prior to the August primary election in 2024 were Ottawa Impact, which is a very far right group. 5 of them were replaced in the August primary, either defeated or chose not to run, or one of them was recalled, if I remember correctly. That outcome did not change in the November election. There are Now they think there's four because there's one that's been kind of quiet, that's kind of aligned with the auto impacts, but it's basically a 7-4 split. Just to give you an idea of how much they try to stack the deck and prohibit or prevent, I would say, the adults from taking over. They actually met on December 31st to have a session to adopt more things. They signed a multi-year contract with a law firm and paid them in advance. That was hand-selected by them. As Mike said, this environmental group or whatever that's doing this work on that lake, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of dollars that is, but that's all no bid contracted. They had all kinds of stuff. They were giving out payout severances to employees that had been there for 3 months, like $150,000, stuff like that. My only regret is I didn't apply for any of the jobs. But yes, there is, as Mike kind of alluded, is, there are adults have returned and are kind of in charge. I actually spoke with one of the county commissioners this morning, who's a legislative staffer, who MGWA supported in his race. He defeated a auto impact, commission candidate as well. The challenge for the next 4 years, because now county commissioners have a 4-year term instead of a 2-year term, is to make sure that, the vocal minority, and they are very vocal, is that they don't make any more headway or try to come back. That, that you are supportive of the health department and the science behind it and what they've done. Hattie Ambley, she's still there, but you continue to have a worthwhile program that's there to protect public health.
During the, let's turn back or the previous, did slow permit issues, environmental health surveys.
I don't think I did, and maybe that's
permit.
Maybe that's a Mike question. Mike, did you see any difference in permitting when, the crazies were in charge?
We saw a restructuring of the way the sanitarians were assigned to various projects. Their fee structure was one of the highest in the state to begin with. A residential well permit in Ottawa County has been almost $400 for, oh goodness, 3 or 4 years now. And I'm not sure if that even includes the water test, but we didn't see any increases in the fees after, after the last couple of years of turmoil. But I think they may have eliminated some of their sanitarians because Joe Moss and his group at that time was cutting the budget so bad for the local health departments that they were short-staffed. So any relationships that we had built up, say we were working in, say Chester Township or Wright Township or something like that, that knew the local geology there. Instead, it was just kind of a first come, first served basis. And a lot of the folks would come out and didn't really grasp the situation. And we saw some new faces that we thought were newer folks. So I think they had a certain amount of turnover during that whole thing. Hopefully things will stabilize a little bit more now. At least it seems like the new chairman, from some of the news briefs and things that I've read about him, he's always saying that he wants to move forward and get money spent to the proper programs to help the residents and not have any no more hidden agendas, I think is what he has said, unlike we had in the past. So
Thanks, Mike. Anything else on other business? Any new agenda items? One, I can see the pledge. I'm happy with that. And then the what was that thing? Percent?
Low volume,
Yeah, can't think of the name of it.
you want that on the agenda for?
Yeah, let's look it over and maybe bring it.
I wait 3 months to get back with them, that's too long, so I'll tell you,
No, you get back with me, we'll talk about it,
okay,
whether it was approved, not approved.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good, because, you know, I have those areas in Branch County. Recorded, you know.
Okay.
Okay, as far as new, everything else is pretty speaking for itself. Everything else that's on the agenda, we'll probably have to revisit. Any other new, if anybody has any new items that come up, please get them to Dave. Chad Thrower had his hand up.
Oh, this guy have his hand up.
Yeah, I just had one question. I was just wondering if there's been any movement on the PFAS limits in Michigan, you know, towards adopting the lower EPA standards at all, if anybody's heard anything about that.
We're at this point, from what I understand, we're kind of in a holding pattern, like waiting to see what's gonna happen at the federal level. Maybe at the MGWA, we can have an update then in February. And then definitely the next time we meet, we can make sure maybe Ian, can you make a note of that, maybe invite Ian to the meeting?
Yeah.
About that. the
I can
next
do
one.
that.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
And John Schmidt, you had something?
No.
All right, anybody else have anything? Want to thank Brad for all your participation and help and diligence and guidance that you've given. Good luck on your next event.
Feel the trees.
Thank you, everybody.
Don't forget us little people when you go over there. in the-
Next meeting day.
So what's your position on solar?
April 10 would be what, 3 months?
Oh, they pick a date?
Yeah, April 10-ish,
That's about.
that's a Thursday, right?
400 acres.
Yeah,
Ready for
Thursday.
prime for development.
Not anymore.
I'm gonna stop recording then.
Thanks, everyone. Happy New Year. Thank you.
Probably too much national.
Happy New Year. Bye.
They haven't started the meeting yet.
The developer backed out. I didn't hear that. Okay.
Yeah, the developer backed out on